Hey guys, welcome back. It has been a few days since I've recorded. I did upload something Sunday that was already pre-recorded. I had an incredible opportunity to see two very influential people in my life, Donna and Jamie Winship of Identity Exchange, in person. Got to do a class with each of them. It was great. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about hearing from God. I learned a lot about how we are truly designed and truly created for connection and relationship. And it really confirmed a lot of things for me, specifically about the fact that I do believe I'm doing the right thing. I'm completing the assignment that God has given me one step at a time. And it was a really great conference. I'm so glad I was able to go. So yeah, it was a great day. And an excellent drive. So I live in East Texas. I drove to Franklin, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville. It's a little over 8 hours for the drive, but it was a wonderful drive. It was smooth, easy, interstate pretty much the whole way. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to go. We're going to be reading Matthew 23 and 24, and we're almost finished with Matthew. Matthew has 28 chapters, so just a few more videos of Matthew, and we'll be diving into Mark after that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Matthew chapter 23 and 24. Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, "The scribes and Pharisees have seated themselves in Moses' chair of authority as teachers of the law. So practice and observe everything they tell you, but do not do as they do, for they preach things, but they do not practice them. The scribes and Pharisees tie up heavy loads that are hard to bear and place them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not lift a finger to make them lighter. They do all their deeds to be seen by men, for they make their phylacteries, or tefillin, wide, to make them more conspicuous, and make their tassels long. They love the place of distinction and honor at feasts and the best seats in the synagogues, those on the platform near the scrolls of the law facing the congregation, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and public forums, and to have people call them rabbi. But do not be called rabbi or teacher, for one is your teacher, and you are all equally brothers. Do not call anyone on earth who guides you spiritually your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. Do not let yourselves be called leaders or teachers, for one is your leader and teacher, the Christ. But the greatest among you will be your servant. Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be raised to honor. But woe, judgment is coming to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you shut off the kingdom of heaven in front of people. For you do not enter yourselves, nor do you allow those who are in the process of entering to do so. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you swallow up widows' houses, and to cover it up, you make long prayers. Therefore, you will receive the greater condemnation. Woe to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you travel over sea and land to make a single proselyte or a convert to Judaism. And when he becomes a convert, you make him twice as much of a son of hell as you are. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever swears an oath by the sanctuary of the temple, that is nothing non-binding. But whoever swears an oath by the gold of the temple is obligated as a debtor to fulfill his vow and keep his promise. You fools and blind men, which is more important, the gold or the sanctuary of the temple that sanctified the gold? And you scribes and Pharisees say, whoever swears an oath by the altar, that is nothing or non-binding. But whoever swears an oath by the offering on it, he is obligated as a debtor to fulfill his vow and keep his promise. You spiritually blind men, which is more important, the offering or the altar that sanctifies the offering? Therefore, whoever swears an oath by the altar swears both by it and by everything offered on it. And whoever swears an oath by the sanctuary of the temple swears by it and by him who dwells within it. And whoever swears an oath by heaven swears both by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. Woe to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you give a tenth or tithe of your mint and dill and cumin, focusing on minor matters, and have neglected the weightier, more important and moral and spiritual provisions of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. But these are the primary things you ought to have done without neglecting the others. You spiritually blind guides, who strain out a gnat, consuming yourself with minuscule matters, and swallow a camel, ignoring and violating God's precepts. Woe to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and of the plate, but inside they are full of extortion and robbery and self-indulgence or unrestrained greed. You spiritually blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and of the plate. Examine and change your inner self to conform to God's precepts, so that the outside, your public life and deeds, may be clean also. Woe to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. So you also outwardly seem to be just and upright to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, self-righteous scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets and decorate and adorn the monuments of the righteous. And you say, if we had been living in the days of our fathers, we would not have joined them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up, then, the allotted measure of the guilt of your father's sins. You serpents, you spawn of vipers. How can you escape the penalty of hell? Therefore, take notice. I am sending you prophets and wise men, interpreters and teachers and scribes, men educated in the Mosaic law and the writings of the prophets. Some of them you will kill and even crucify. Some you will flog in your synagogues and pursue and persecute from city to city, so that on you will come the guilt of all the blood of the righteous shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah the priest, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. I assure you and most solemnly say to you, the judgment for all these things, these vile and murderous deeds, will come on this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who murders the prophets and stones to death those messengers who are sent to her by God. How often I wanted to gather your children together around me, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. Listen carefully. Your house is being left to you desolate, completely abandoned by God and destitute of his protection. For I say to you, you will not see me again ministering to you publicly until you say, blessed to be celebrated with praise is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And now we're moving on to Matthew chapter 24. Jesus left the temple area and was going on his way when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to the magnificent and massive buildings of the temple. And he said to them, do you see all these things? I assure you and most solemnly say to you, not one stone here will be left on another, which will not be torn down. When Jesus was seated on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately and said, tell us, when will this destruction of the temple take place? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end or completion and consummation of the age? Jesus answered, be careful that no one misleads you, deceiving you and leading you into error. For many will come in my name, misusing it and appropriating the strength of the name which belongs to me. saying, I am the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed, and they will mislead many. You will continually hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for these things must take place, but that is not yet the end of the age. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all of these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs, of the intolerable anguish and the time of unprecedented trouble. Then they will hand you over to endure tribulation, and will put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will be offended and repelled by their association with me, and will fall away from the one whom they should trust, and will betray one another, handing over believers to their persecutors, and will hate one another. Many false prophets will appear and mislead many. Because lawlessness is increased, the love of most people will grow cold. But the one who endures and bears up under suffering to the end will be saved. This good news of the kingdom, the gospel, will be preached throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end of the age will come. So when you see the abomination of desolation, the appalling sacrilege that astonishes and makes desolate, spoken by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains for refuge. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get things that are in his house, because there will not be enough time. Whoever is in the fields must not turn back to get his coat. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. Pray that your flight from persecution and suffering will not be in winter or on a Sabbath when Jewish laws prohibit travel. For at that time there will be a great tribulation, pressure, distress, oppression. Such has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will again. And if those days of tribulation had not been cut short, no human life would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, God's chosen ones, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you during the great tribulation, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear, and they will provide great signs and wonders, so as to deceive, if possible, even the elect or God's chosen ones. Listen carefully. I have told you in advance. So if they say to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out there. Or look, he is in the inner rooms of a house, do not believe it. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will be the coming in glory of the Son of Man. Everyone will see him clearly. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will flock together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not provide its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And at that time, the sign of the Son of Man coming in his glory will appear in the sky. And then all the tribes of the earth, and especially Israel, will mourn, regretting their rebellion and rejection of the Messiah. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory and brilliance and splendor. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather together his elect, or God's chosen ones, from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its young shoots become tender and it puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So you too, when you see all these things taking place, know for certain that he is near, right at the door. I assure you and most solemnly say to you, this generation, the people living when these signs and events begin, will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth, as now known, will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But of that exact day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son in his humanity, but the Father alone. For the coming of the Son of Man, the Messiah, will be just like the days of Noah. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the very day when Noah entered the ark. And they did not know or understand until the flood came and swept them all away. So will the coming of the Son of Man be, unexpected judgment. At that time, 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken for judgment, and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken for judgment, and one will be left. So be alert, give strict attention, be cautious and active in faith, for you do not know which day, whether near or far, your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the head of the house had known what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have been on alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you who follow me must also be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has put in charge of his household to give the others in the house their food and supplies at the proper time? Blessed is that faithful servant when his master returns and finds him doing so. I assure you and most solemnly say to you that he will put him in charge of all of his possessions. But if that servant is evil and says in his heart, my master is taking his time, he will not return for a long while, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour of which he is not aware, and will cut him in two and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping over sorrow and pain, and grinding of teeth over distress and anger. And those were Matthew chapters 23 and 24. Getting pretty intense in these last few chapters, talking about splitting people in two and being prepared for the return of the Messiah, which I'm sure the disciples at the time were like, what do you mean your return? You're still here. You haven't gone anywhere. But I also think that the ones that were paying attention realized his time's running out. He's not going to be here forever. And there's a lot of references. We've got Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Psalms, Genesis, 2 Chronicles, ton of references in these 2 chapters. Daniel especially, Joel. I think there's even Job and Ezekiel in here too. Some great references of the Old Testament and of the prophecies that the Messiah has to fulfill, not just in his first coming, but in his return to earth, the things that have to be fulfilled for him to come, and for the things that he fulfills when he does come back to earth. I don't fully understand the timing. Obviously, I don't think we're supposed to. But I can see why a lot of people would say that this is the end of the age. This is the last generation or the last generations. Something that my dad mentioned was that the birth rate across the world is declining. We're not seeing people having babies as often as they were. And he said, it could be that the age of the Gentiles is coming to an end. There's no more Gentile souls to be put into babies for babies to be born and to be raised into, new human beings. There's a limited amount of time and people to be born before the beginning of the tribulation, beginning of the end, essentially. That would make sense. But I don't know. That's all God's plan. So if you have a theory, drop it down below. I'd love to know your opinion. And make sure while you're leaving your comment, make sure you give the video a like. And if you're enjoying reading the Bible along with me, subscribe and hit the little notification bell so that you know exactly when I post. I know I'm a little inconsistent and I'm trying to get better at that. That is a goal for me for the next few weeks, is to try to get as much recorded and edited so that I can have a better schedule for you guys. I'm working on some other projects as well, which I can't wait to share, but it's going to be good. It's going to be some really good developments. In the meantime, don't forget that my website, which I'll put up here for you guys, and it's also going to be in the description. My website, heygod-itsmeagain.com. I've got some blog posts. I have some study resources, not very many, but there's some study resources. There's also links to the different readings that I've done. There's, links to the videos as well, which you can find here on YouTube, obviously. And then there's also links to my guided prayer journal that I published a little, it's been almost 5 months ago. I published it in November. So there's a physical copy that you can purchase if you want the paper physical experience. But if you're a digital journaler and you prefer the digital experience, you just want to be able to do kind of whatever, hit the undo button, hit the back button, whatever. The digital version is also available, and the link is on my website. It's much more affordable if you want to get the digital version. The print version, the printer's it costs a certain amount to produce, first and foremost. And then the company that I chose, they are going to take their percentage for publishing for me and printing for me, because it's all print on demand. And then, of course, there's shipping and tax and all that. And I completely understand that's not feasible for everybody. So there is a digital copy that you can purchase. It's just $5. And you get an email link to download it. Simple, easy. And I think it's a great resource for people. There's nothing preventing you from talking to God. But if you feel like you need a place to start and you need help really wording what you want to ask, or if you want to talk to him, but you don't know what to talk about, there's some great prompts. There's 30 prompts in the journal. You can reuse them if you want to. There's plenty of space to write and use them in the journal. I made it big, because number one, I have huge handwriting. My handwriting's messy and it's big. I need a lot of space. But two, I wanted people to have space to be creative and to really express themselves with God, because ultimately he wants to hear from you. He wants to have a relationship with you. And I wanted to create something that would help people get comfortable having that conversation and listening and having a space to write down what they hear from him. So if you feel like that's something that would benefit you, check out my website. If not, that's okay too. And if it's something that may not benefit you necessarily, but you say, I know somebody who might need this, or I know somebody that this would benefit, share it with them. Send them a link to my YouTube videos. Have them watch and read along with me. And if it really does work for them and they feel like this would be beneficial, then absolutely, by all means. The link is down below in the description. Put it up here again for you. Do what God tells you to do, not what I tell you to do. I'm just a human. I make mistakes, but he doesn't. He knows everything. And I feel like it's a great tool for some people, a great tool for a lot of people, actually, because at the end of the day, God wants that relationship. God wants to talk to you. And the world we live in can be confusing and overwhelming and can make you feel like you don't know up from down, left from right. You don't know where to start. And this is meant to be a tool to help you get your footing and get comfortable and start. So, and again, if you're enjoying reading along with me, make sure you hit that like button on the video. Hit the subscribe button so that you can keep up with when I post. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so grateful to be able to do this, even with the simple technology that I have, the tiny little mic that I have plugged into my phone. So grateful. In the meantime and in between time, you guys stay blessed, stay bold, and I will see you in the next one.